Good afternoon, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started if you'd like to find your seat. Thank you all for being here. For those of you that are back from yesterday, we welcome you back. And for those of you, this is your first day here, thanks for showing up, and we hope you enjoy our program this afternoon. The agenda for the afternoon, Clifford will be speaking for an hour, the first hour, and Elana will be speaking for the second hour, and then the third hour from 3 to 4. Both Elana and Clifford will be on the stage, and we'll have question and answer time. And feel free to, if you need a break, we'll be going straight through this afternoon, so if you do need a break, feel free to do that as you need to. The restrooms are just out through the foyer and to the left. They're accessed from the inside of the building. In these times of an information overload, it is very difficult to get the details on the perspectives on the many, many concerning topics. The intention of this event is simply to get across one perspective about our technologically rapidly moving times. Please don't hesitate to continue your own research on other topics or host your own event in order to make it easier for all of us to gather and learn about the different perspectives that can be understood about these topics. This event is not for the only purpose of saying that the perspectives presented are the right ones, but they are perspectives of very respectable individuals who are researched and intelligent, and their perspective is worth considering. Please know that in our question and answer time, it is not a time for you to state your opinion. It is a time to state your question only. You'll have 30 to 60 seconds to state your question. If you take longer, you will be stopped, and we ask you to please be respectful of our speakers. Thanks so much. And I have Clifford's introduction today. It appeared. Clifford Carnicom is the founder and president of the Carnicom Institute, a nonprofit research and educational organization that is devoted to environmental and health issues. Clifford also worked as a technical research scientist, acting in a professional capacity supporting analysis and development of major Department of Defense physical and weapons modeling systems, with extensive computer programming and system application, development, and experience. He's held top CIA and SCI clearance. Clifford was self-employed as a professional computer consultant in Santa Fe, New Mexico for 17 years. He's been a federal employee of the United States government for 15 years with 3 agencies, including the Department of Defense, the Bureau of Land Management, and the U.S. Forest Service. About Clifford, Elana Freeland says, "Without Clifford, I would not know what I know, nor would I have written what I've written about geoengineering and bioengineering agenda. He is the most ethical human being I have ever met. And our meeting in 2006 or so was starborn, you might say, far beyond coincidence." Clifford, we welcome you to the stage this afternoon.
Thank you. Good afternoon. You can hear me okay? Oh, okay. Thanks a whole lot for being here and helping to pull it off. Again, I really appreciate it. Thanks to Melissa, and I hope maybe we'll read the foreword that I wrote for Elana in return when she gets on the stage later today from her book. All righty, so we have work to do, I suppose. I do thank you for being here yesterday if you were familiar with what we went over. Got an hour today. I'm sure we'll be busy. I did want to start by just taking care of sort of some loose ends from yesterday. And one of them was, might be nice to know where the information is and how to get a hold of us. So this is basic upfront contact information for you. And the way, oh, I have a pointer today too. That's up front. May make it. So there's a web address and there's an email address. Email staff is limited, so email may have delays, but we do our best over time. And you all get to thank my wife Carol for much of what happens there. Alrighty, so you all have that, I hope. And then same thing, I'm going to give a couple of follow-throughs from yesterday about how to get to things. So we're going to familiarize ourselves with what the website at least looks like on the front end if things go well. Okay, and how to get to a specific paper that generated some interest yesterday. So this will be the front end of the website with that address you had. The website will have 5 major divisions that have accumulated over the years. Some of the projects that I was talking about are going to be listed here. The main site is up top here, so I'll go there because that's where the research papers are going to be. But everything has its place. Oh yeah, we have to get on the net, Jackson. And I don't know if it's remembering from yesterday or not, but we're going to see. I don't know if it held that code. It was FFWC, right? Yes. Let's see if it remembers yesterday. That would be nice. I see it talking. That's good. Let's go on though. I can move around. So you saw the front end, and so when you hit that front end, I have these loaded. Hopefully we'll see them, whether the net works or not. So when you hit that front end, this is where you'll go, what you'll see. Main categories are up there, hopefully. What I'm going to focus on right now is just to make sure we're aware of the research library there, that button on the left. That's where the 350 papers are, roughly. You can also go up top where it says research drop down, and you'll have research by 2 different methods, really, 2 or 3 different methods. But they're listed chronologically, and I've already done that if we're lucky. And this is what you'll see. And so this is a list of papers chronologically, and it's about 18 pages, I think, if you print it out, of titles. So it's a big deal, no way around it. And they start on that Valentine's Day on February 14th, 1999. And can everybody hear me okay in general? Thank you. And then I wanted to mention this paper from yesterday. I mentioned that I'm actually very optimistic, and I don't think what I speak of is a doomsday scenario. I think that we have our own powers and our own spirit and our own will, and it's our job to exercise that. This is a paper that is an attempt, again, I'm not a medical professional by any means, there's nothing inferred in any type of fashion, that direction, but I am a free human being, and I am free to do my research. This paper will present the results of some fairly significant research of strategies based on nutritional methods or supplements to attempt to deal with, at least to some fashion, if we accept the fact that there appears to be a pretty much across-the-board assault on the human body and health. That's a difficult challenge, and this is not meant to be any type of accepted list by others. This is the result of my research, and there's about 2 dozen suggestions for everyone here to consider. This paper has a tie-in with a whole body of research behind it. You'll see those referenced within this paper. It would be work to basically understand that's all that's in this paper, but hopefully what I've tried to do is give the rationale for the presentation of each of these. Everything that is presented on this paper is a result of something that I witnessed, experienced, or encountered in the laboratory research. So it's not just a suggestive general random list. Everyone here is in response to something that occurred that I regard as potentially significant. And I hopefully have tried to give at least a basis of what that rationale might be within them. So I won't go through them, but I'm trying to make it available to you in a more direct fashion than yesterday. Yesterday I mentioned it. I wanted to show you how to get to it. Okay? This is, you're welcome, and this is not the end of the line. There is additional work that takes place after this, some of which is published and some of which is not to be published.
Good afternoon, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started if you'd like to find your seat. Thank you all for being here. For those of you that are back from yesterday, we welcome you back. And for those of you, this is your first day here, thanks for showing up, and we hope you enjoy our program this afternoon. The agenda for the afternoon, Clifford will be speaking for an hour, the first hour, and Elana will be speaking for the second hour, and then the third hour from 3 to 4. Both Elana and Clifford will be on the stage, and we'll have question and answer time. And feel free to, if you need a break, we'll be going straight through this afternoon, so if you do need a break, feel free to do that as you need to. The restrooms are just out through the foyer and to the left. They're accessed from the inside of the building. In these times of an information overload, it is very difficult to get the details on the perspectives on the many, many concerning topics. The intention of this event is simply to get across one perspective about our technologically rapidly moving times. Please don't hesitate to continue your own research on other topics or host your own event in order to make it easier for all of us to gather and learn about the different perspectives that can be understood about these topics. This event is not for the only purpose of saying that the perspectives presented are the right ones, but they are perspectives of very respectable individuals who are researched and intelligent, and their perspective is worth considering. Please know that in our question and answer time, it is not a time for you to state your opinion. It is a time to state your question only. You'll have 30 to 60 seconds to state your question. If you take longer, you will be stopped, and we ask you to please be respectful of our speakers. Thanks so much. And I have Clifford's introduction today. It appeared. Clifford Carnicom is the founder and president of the Carnicom Institute, a nonprofit research and educational organization that is devoted to environmental and health issues. Clifford also worked as a technical research scientist, acting in a professional capacity supporting analysis and development of major Department of Defense physical and weapons modeling systems, with extensive computer programming and system application, development, and experience. He's held top CIA and SCI clearance. Clifford was self-employed as a professional computer consultant in Santa Fe, New Mexico for 17 years. He's been a federal employee of the United States government for 15 years with 3 agencies, including the Department of Defense, the Bureau of Land Management, and the U.S. Forest Service. About Clifford, Elana Freeland says, "Without Clifford, I would not know what I know, nor would I have written what I've written about geoengineering and bioengineering agenda. He is the most ethical human being I have ever met. And our meeting in 2006 or so was starborn, you might say, far beyond coincidence." Clifford, we welcome you to the stage this afternoon.
Thank you. Thanks. Good afternoon. You can hear me okay? I hope? Okay. Thanks a whole lot for being here and helping to pull it off. Again, I really appreciate it. Thanks to Melissa. And I hope maybe we'll read the foreword that I wrote for Elana in return when she gets on the stage later today from her book. All righty, so we have work to do, I suppose. I do thank you for being here yesterday if you were familiar with what we went over. Got an hour today. I'm sure we'll be busy. I did want to start by just taking care of sort of some loose ends from yesterday. And one of them was, might be nice to know where the information is and how to get a hold of us. So this is basic upfront contact information for you. And the way, oh, I have a pointer today too that's up front. Maybe. So there's a web address and there's an email address. Email, staff is limited, so email may have delays, but we do our best over time. And you all get to thank my wife, Carol, for much of what happens there. All righty, so you all have that, I hope. And then same thing, I'm going to give a couple of follow-throughs from yesterday about how to get to things. So we're going to familiarize ourselves with what the website at least looks like on the front end if things go well. Okay, and how to get to a specific paper that generated some interest yesterday. So this will be the front end of the website with that address you had. The website will have 5 major divisions that have accumulated over the years. Some of the projects that I was talking about are going to be listed here. The main site is up top here, so I'll go there because that's where the research papers are going to be. But everything has its place. Oh yeah, we have to get on the net, Jackson. And I don't know if it's remembering from yesterday or not, but we're going to see. I don't know if it held that code. It was FFWC, right? Yes. Let's see if it remembers yesterday. That would be nice. I see it talking. That's good. Let's go on now. I can move around. So you saw the front end, and so when you hit that front end, I have these loaded. Hopefully we'll see them, whether the net works or not. So when you hit that front end, this is where you'll go, what you'll see. Main categories are up there, hopefully. What I'm going to focus on right now is just that, make sure we're aware of the research library there, that button on the left. That's where the 350 papers are, roughly. You can also go up top where it says research drop down, and you'll have research by 2 different methods, really, 2 or 3 different methods. But they're listed chronologically, and I've already done that if we're lucky. And this is what you'll see. And so this is a list of papers chronologically, and it's about 18 pages, I think, if you print it out, of titles. So it's a big deal, no way around it. And they start on that Valentine's Day on February 14th, 1999. And can everybody hear me okay in general? Thank you. And then I wanted to mention this paper from yesterday. I mentioned that I'm actually very optimistic, and I don't think what I speak of is a doomsday scenario. I think that we have our own powers and our own spirit and our own will, and it's our job to exercise that. This is a paper that is an attempt, again, I'm not a medical professional by any means, there's nothing inferred in any type of fashion, that direction, but I am a free human being, and I am free to do my research. This paper will present the results of some fairly significant research of strategies based on nutritional methods or supplements to attempt to deal with, at least to some fashion, if we accept the fact that there appears to be a pretty much across-the-board assault on the human body and health. That's a difficult challenge, and this is not meant to be any type of accepted list by others. This is the result of my research, and there's about 2 dozen suggestions for everyone here to consider. This paper has a tie-in with a whole body of research behind it. You'll see those referenced within this paper. It would be work to basically understand that's all that's in this paper, but hopefully what I've tried to do is give the rationale for the presentation of each of these. Everything that is presented on this paper is a result of something that I witnessed, experienced, or encountered in the laboratory research. So it's not just a suggestive general random list. Everyone here is in response to something that occurred that I regard as potentially significant. And I hopefully have tried to give at least a basis of what that rationale might be within them. So I won't go through them, but I'm trying to make it available to you in a more direct fashion than yesterday. Yesterday I mentioned it. I wanted to show you how to get to it. Okay? This is you're welcome, and this is not the end of the line. There is additional work that takes place after this, some of which is published and some of which is not to be published at the current time. That's more of a conditional phrase for the future, which will hopefully make a little bit more sense as the day goes on. Okay, so that catches us up with some things from yesterday that are important. Now, I wanted to, I mentioned there were 4 projects. Let's see if I can bring that up. And, you know, it's going to help me if we can just read it, yeah. If you can, I don't have to go full screen as long as we can read it. I mentioned there were 4 projects that developed. You have this body of research taking place. Certain subjects assumed a greater importance, I suppose, over time, and these are 4 of them that have evolved. I discussed 2 of them yesterday. The environmental fulfillment project was that whole thing that tied in with that paper called a global validation that compared environmental samples against a claim being made of spider webs that does not hold. I mentioned yesterday the Morgellons research project and that summary list of symptoms, if you recall, and that's the second one there. There are 2 others. I want to mention this one called a Community Health Professional Network because it represents an aspiration of mine. I have many aspirations. Again, I consider myself optimistic by nature, an optimistic realist. How's that? That's one for you. So this project, I'd like to mention a little bit about. Too much to read, but what's going on here is just as there is no proper or formal acknowledgement of the existence of the state of affairs, especially with respect to a health condition that is given the name Morgellons, there is also, to my knowledge, no formal network that honestly and fairly, I'll have to add those as qualifiers, honestly and fairly has organized itself to attempt to help people. There's nothing primarily but derision or what I would call inadequate, not fully informed organizations that may exist that may, I'll have to be more blunt here, masquerade as attempting to help people. So it doesn't exist. And I'm hardly a doctor. I'm not the kind of person that should have to, again, create such an entity, but I'm driven to because the need exists. There is a need for an organized effort to coordinate and orchestrate health professionals together in a professional capacity to address the serious health issues that exist in the public, especially with respect to this condition that has assume the name of Morgellons. This need exists. So how is it to be filled? If it doesn't exist and I can't find anyone that's doing it, even when they're asked to, I take it on, if I can. And this is that project. This project needs help. A lot of my projects need help, as I'll talk more about today. There's been a lot of good work done here. I have a very good IT person. In fact, I'll just go ahead and mention it now because it will come out through the day. But much of what you are the beneficiaries of in terms of the information, the platform. I used to work on websites, but I don't have time for that at all. You would not even be receiving the information unless you had the assistance of someone. You have had the assistance of someone. Very helpful, very important for a long time. And the systems that I'm talking about, let alone the website, the presentation of all the information, they are available to you because of the dedicated effort of a very special individual in a totally gifting capacity to you, totally volunteer capacity. And this is one such system. The Morgellons Research Survey was another such system. This is a platform and system that has been created to say, please come, join this organization if you'd like to. This movement, I suppose it is, because there's nothing formal about it at this point, but let's start getting together as health professionals and start the dialogue. And that's what this is about. It's not restricted to health professionals. They're certainly the primary target. The basic criteria will be that if you want to be a part of this, you need to show that you wish to contribute something of substance. Even if that may be that you have certain symptoms, that you are articulate enough and educated enough that you can describe that to those that are professional. Could be any type of capacity. So it's not a process of exclusion. There are about 80-some people that have joined in there over last year, so there has been some progress made. Those are in and the other half are those that are regarded as members. I actually regard that as a significant accomplishment at this point. There are people that are saying they want to do something. We'll talk again more about it, but this project needs some help. I do not have the time to manage this project, and this will come up in many, many ways. I have a sense, a very good sense, of what I know needs to be done and can be done. But you can bet I will be asking for help. And the help I'm asking for, in most ways, will now be at the professional level. It doesn't mean that's a condition, but the level we're talking about is at a professional level, and that's going to be the same thing here, okay? I will need people that understand how to organize and encourage professionals to talk with one another in a civil fashion and make progress on a very serious public health issue. Okay, that is that project. Okay, now before I get into, well, there was another one. Okay, I'll give it to you because you had 4 on there. I will just give you I'll give you the introduction. This will tie in also with what I'm going to speak about today. This is a situation that exists that is unacceptable, but it is a state of affairs. You see these 350 papers written on the website, and you see these systems. That's the effort made to present it in hopefully a clear, presentable format to you. The basis of almost all of that work are my notebooks. My notebooks are handwritten notebooks. I have, how it started, I didn't really plan what that was for, but I did keep basically a log of what I did in the laboratory from quite some time ago. And started out with volume 1, and I didn't know where it was going, but it's up to about 24, 25 volumes now. And then there's another set of volumes, another couple dozen, that get into areas that are even outside the fields we're talking about. So I have probably anywhere from 25 to 40 volumes of work. And this is where everything actually took place in the lab. This is old style, right? This is handwriting. And my handwriting never was particularly smooth, but it's not especially smooth now. So there's challenges in this, but this is where the work actually resides. And part of the longer-term picture that I have, as I'll describe today, these things need to be digitized. They need to be in the record, is what it amounts to. There is some very important information in these books, and not all of the information by any means is published within all the research papers. I cannot write everything up. As a matter of fact, that's a general trend over the last couple of years. I just can't keep up with writing the papers. I'm lucky to get the stuff in the books, but I do try to get it in there. Okay? So this project is partially, there has been progress made on it, but just so you know, at the most, it's about a half and probably a third of the way through of trying to get these things scanned. And scanning doesn't solve your problems entirely, right? The scanning is only the first part. Guess what another need is? They have to be indexed. Every single page has to be gone through an index. And I tried, when I was at Tucson, I asked for help. I had 6 people come. I said, I need help getting these things indexed. I had 6 folks come. I'm sorry, not a single one of them actually committed. There's only one person right now that I know that can index these notes, and that's me. Okay. And I'm about halfway through them. And this is another sincere, dedicated time and effort on my side. And I'm not complaining, but it's like I'm saying I'm strapped. There's only so much I can do. And that's why the picture is much, much bigger than me. And we have to realize the picture is much, much bigger than me. And the more that you get me away from it, the better off we will all be, is what it amounts to. And if I had my druthers, those books would have at least been indexed by now. I want to, let's see how I'm doing. Not bad. All right, so I want to show a couple of more videos. I think they're only about 30 seconds, if I can get these to work. I showed you some photographs yesterday involving some toxicology studies on some plants, right? I did it on respect to a bean plant, and I did it with respect to some yeast cells. And I'm not sure how many of you recall that. I should probably get some sense. How many people are here today that were not here yesterday? Well, we have quite a few. That means these folks are a little bit in the dark, right, about what I'm talking about. I'll try to share the territory there a little bit and have patients give and take on both sides. I don't want to leave them completely in the dark. And that background was important to what I'm saying, because I'm always pressed for time here. So I have to try to give you the 1 or 2 sentence versions. But I did show the results of investigative work to examine the toxicity, poisoning, that is associated with a specific protein. I talked a whole lot yesterday about the importance of proteins and why it's not just some scientific term. It's extremely important to understand what proteins are about and their importance with respect to human health. So accept that, and then let's say that I studied the toxic effects of a specific protein that I have isolated from a microorganism that is absolutely central, and I would say causal, to the existence of the Morgellons condition. Okay, hopefully that's a fair summary of what happened yesterday. Okay, and I showed photographs that unfortunately show that protein is causing serious damage. Even a very dilute solution is causing very serious damage and interrupting the growth pattern of basic agricultural products. Okay. Now, I had a couple videos. I wanted to let you know that I've stepped that up 1 notch. They become ethical issues here when you start dealing with living forms, and we actually want to get this bumped up, but I have to stay in ethically safe territory. There might be animal rights groups, but so far I don't know that they're acting at the protozoa level. And so I have applied this effort towards protozoa as well. Now, what's significant here, it's your first moving organism, right? It's your first thing on that food chain that we can relate to and say, hey, that guy's moving. So this is a control. This is under the scope. Oh, I don't know, the magnification here won't be extreme. Maybe it'll be 1000x or something like that. This will be a control photo if this works out. This means things are supposed to be normal here. This is like paramecium doing their thing. And everybody's hopefully okay and happy. Let's see if I've got the right one. Hopefully you see some things moving around. You see some things moving around? Okay? No, these are paramecium. This is a protozoa. This is a protozoa, single-celled organism, right? Eukaryote domain. So this is normal behavior of that species of protozoa in a normal setting. Now, we are moving ahead. It went by itself. I didn't have to fuss with it. It jumped ahead for me. This is the same conditions, except exposed to the protein that I was speaking of yesterday. Right? This protein is a very specific, important protein, isolated from a very specific, important microorganism that I have isolated from both environmental samples as well as biological samples that are reflective of the, quote, Morgellons condition. Now, I'm going to watch that again because I didn't get to see it. Okay, will it help you to try to go back? All right, let's go back. You're going to have one control and you're going to have two subjected to the protein. That's what you're going to have. Okay, this one will be your control, hopefully, if this goes out okay. Okay, this is control. Okay. To me, this is monumental, absolutely monumental evidence to you that there is a very serious problem we're talking about here. And I'm not just talking about the interesting things of science of isolating a protein. I'm talking about something that is almost certain at this point to have detrimental effects on essentially all biology of this planet, the best that I can tell at this point. That's normal behavior, okay? So everybody have that as a reference point, okay? Is that all right? All right, thank you. And now we have two to compare for being subjected to a rather dilute version. You could, listen, everything's a matter of dosage too, right? You kill yourself eating too much steak, right? That's the whole story. So you're not allowed to just dump on something and expect not some kind of result. But this is a rather dilute solution. I have it at, my recollection is a 0.5%. It's a pretty weak solution. I went over, by the way, yesterday I went over a whole series of specific molecular compounds and structures that have been isolated within the protein itself. Okay, I made a brief pass over that. That list was not friendly at all. Okay, let's see if we get another one. This is where I'm losing some of my time, but it is important. It's important. This is the real world. The research is not just for kicks, okay? The research is to try to learn what is actually happening. Now, this is subjected to the protein. I think we'll probably see it 2 times. Each time it's 30%. So, my goodness, right? Okay, you decide for yourself. Is that normal behavior compared to what you just saw as the reference and the control? Is that normal behavior? Is that significant in terms of potential detrimental effects to human health, even if it is a protozoa? Okay, there they are. And you can characterize that scientifically if you need to, right? But obviously restricted mobility, at very least, right? The equivalent of the neural system they're screwed up, all right? I'll make it simple. They're screwed up bad. All right, let's get to the last one. This will be your second control, or I'm sorry, your second application to the protein. Only one control. This will be the second one. It gives us another thing to compare to. What goes on here? Shriveled up, basically, in a little ball, right? Pretty sad. Pretty sad. My work is not done out of fear. I emphasized this many times yesterday. This is not to induce fear. This is to induce awareness and knowledge of a situation and realism that I'm talking about serious issues that we all need to become involved in, and it's not about me. And like I'm saying, the more we talk, you need to get away from me. You need to be aware this is happening, and then you need to start asking the questions. You need to be asking people to conduct this very same test and explain to you what is happening and why. It's what you need to be doing. You need to make that shift of direction of making the moves yourself. Okay, is that enough to see that one? Was it adequate? All right. Okay, done. And I didn't get to show those yesterday, but you have a chain. And that chain right now is running through foods that you eat to the simplest life forms, showing very serious problems. Plants wouldn't germinate, and protozoa don't swim. Okay, please carry it forward for me, because this is what I need from you. I can repeat this test. All my work can be repeated. All right, let's move on now, and I am right at the point that I need to be in terms of time. Let's see. Let's go to this one first. Okay, life is changing for me and for this nonprofit. Things are changing. I am in a position for the first time in my life of actually making a sales pitch. And I don't make sales pitches, it's not my style. But essentially this is an appeal. There's a very big appeal coming in the remaining time, almost all of my remaining time for today. And I'm trying to get on the record. I don't know if we're filming. Yeah, we are filming today. I want it on the record that I'm making an appeal, a very serious appeal, for a basically upscaling of what I have done for the last 20 years on a very dramatic level. The work might be impressive in some respects, some of the studies that have been done. It might be. But you have to consider the resources that was done with and the time that it took to do that. It might be great. It doesn't cut it though, okay? It's not fast enough at all. It's not nearly fast enough. I can promise you that I know things that have taken me 20 years to learn, that I know if I had the right resources, I would have that done within a week. And it's a little bit hard to stomach that in your life, but that's happened over and over. So I am talking about a major shift in terms of, I wonder what research Carnicom is going to do next. It's not going to apply. I'm talking about assuming ownership at the public level, and everything that I will be talking about requires that the interests of the public be paramount. No matter how much money gets involved in what I'm talking about, the ethics and the focus of the entire project will always be that of the public interest. And that is an essential requirement of everything that I was speaking of. I, for the first time, am admitting and saying I will never be able to keep up. I am getting older. I talked about that yesterday. I consider myself fortunate to be here. If you think that the work is significant, and I do, I think the work that's been done, not potentially, but does affect the health of every living thing on this planet, let alone non-living. I think it affects everything on this planet. I think that's what this research I've done shows. I can't take that on. You can't expect some single individual to be carrying that crusade forward. So I'm starting to ask for help at a much, much deeper and broader level. Now, this is a summary statement. I'll have to be moving through these. What I've done is I have created a proposal. I am proposing that Carnicom Institute, which is a small, independent, nonprofit research organization, limited staff, very limited staff, transition itself. And I have some type of timeline in my mind. I will say, if things do not happen within the next year, I mean, I'm going to be going over about 12 components to this proposal I'm making. I don't know that they all need to be in place, but let's just say I think that they all should be in place, certainly within this next year. I don't have time to hang out and hope it happens, okay? This is a summary statement that tells you what these, they're called campaigns. I have created a fundraising platform. The fundraising platform is its primary purpose right now is to make you aware of what the ambition is. I'm not focusing on the donate now button. That's not really the purpose of the platform that I've created, just like I created a platform for the Morgellons survey and the Professional Health Network. This is a platform. Its primary purpose right now is to help make the public aware of what I think is needed. We can disagree, but it's my time to tell you. And it starts out with a dozen campaigns that really just get things going. I'm talking about transitioning the nonprofit research organization to an educational foundation. This is what I'm seeking. My image of what, foundations actually involve by themselves, apparently involve millions of bucks right away. Apparently the educational foundation route is something that's going to be a little bit more giving in terms of how we get things started. At least I hope so. But the purpose of that organization will be stated within the paper here. This is all on the website. But it's basically to take the research that I have done and apply it, okay? Apply it. Not just be aware of it. It's one thing of education. It is not adequate. I do have these times in my life where I hear this thing that says knowledge is power. I've mentioned it before. I do not buy it. I don't buy it at all. Knowledge by itself is not power in my book. It only becomes powerful when you apply it, when you exercise it. And I'm in the same boat. I've got a whole body of information that few people would have the pleasantries of wanting to read the stuff that I write sometimes, okay? Most people do not, it's probably true, most people do not know the majority of what I've written. But it's there, but that information by itself does nothing unless you apply it. If you don't take that slide that I just showed you and start asking some questions and say, what do I do next? Or how do I repeat this? And what does it mean? That's when knowledge takes on meaning and power. So the way this has been structured right now, and Carol and I have both worked on this quite a bit over the last couple of months while we were traveling on our way through here. There's about a dozen campaigns that have been set up, which I call core campaigns. These, to me, would just be the guts of getting things going. Let's go through them fairly quickly by name, and then I'll step through them a little bit more. There is a description here of this proposal. It is an appeal to the public. I will read you the first paragraph. I'll read the first two paragraphs for you. Carnicom Institute Foundation and Proposal. Carnicom Institute is seeking to establish a nonprofit educational foundation by the name of Carnicom Foundation. Carnicom Foundation will carry the legacy of Carnicom Institute research forward to serve the public, environmental, and health interests for current and future generations. Carnicom Institute is expressly appealing to the philanthropic members of society who have a humanitarian commitment to the environment and to the welfare, rights, and health of the world population. I'm changing gears. I talked yesterday about something I can't go into now, but I will briefly say that I devoted 3 years of time of my life towards trying to pursue this avenue in the private world, I'll call it, the private sector, okay? It was a bust. It was a bust. I described it yesterday. Let's just say, you can say that my ethical conditions were not satisfied. Let's put it that way, all right? And in the end, it didn't fly. And if there's one thing that's going to happen, if I have a role in this organization, the money that I'm going to be talking about, this money is not about me. This money is about this organization. But if I have a say in this, my desire for influence for this proposal is to have ethical oversight over the operations of this foundation and also to serve an important role in the development and design of research projects as well as protocols, basically professional protocols that pass the tests, basically, of proving themselves for human health. I wouldn't be involved directly in an application by any means. But ethical oversight and direct involvement in the design of the systems and projects that will be used to benefit public health. That's the purpose of this. These are the campaigns. We'll go by name first, and then we'll dig into those just a little bit more. And by the way, when we get done with this list of 12, you will see that I'm saying, you know what, folks, this is just the start. In my mind right now, money is actually I have no concern about money whatsoever. My only goal is to relay the message. This is what's needed. I'm not concerned about it. I'll tell you, I had $20 million that was on the table, potentially, okay? It was to be sacrificed because of the ethical requirements here. The money we're talking about is serious. This first level will be about $300K, you'll see, to get it started. Down beneath this, we'll say, we have to admit, what I'm talking about is only a bare bones start, and these are additional divisions and components of that foundation if we can bring it to existence. And I didn't even try to put a budget on this because I know we're dealing with a level where people understand we've got something we've got to work for. All right, let's go back to these and let us just, at this time, start stepping through them on the individual basis. You've seen the summary. This is now the platform that is now introducing each of those individual campaigns. Again, keep money out of the picture so much right now, but I've tried to give an estimate of what I think might be happening with it, but focus on the purpose primarily, okay? Core primary needs of this organization. This is what exists. Okay, fortunately, I've been able to open them up ahead of time. Thank you, Mr. Computer. That's backwards, so we'll go another direction. There we go. We'll start from this side. Okay. I'll try to summarize these within a sentence or two on each one. Need some lawyers involved. At least I think so. Pretty sure I do, for several reasons. But what I need the paperwork in place. I created this nonprofit. That took me a while. It wasn't real easy. I did it through assistance of legal firms, but not direct legal assistance. I need the paperwork in place to get this organization in place as an educational foundation. I need it done properly, I need it done formally, and I need the ethical requirements. There will be stipulations and conditions, and I believe it needs to be done by legal means to enforce that no breach of the ethics that I spoke of will occur. There will be no funny business going on. I talked quite a bit yesterday about intellectual property. There is significant intellectual property going on here. And I wish now to have this foundation assume ownership of that intellectual property. This is what I want. I did try with let's call it a set of individuals that stated such intentions. The reality is it doesn't exist. I'm 3 years into it. It doesn't exist. We're overdue. We're way overdue. The good news that I said yesterday is even though there was a problem there, I have continued the research. The research has gone full bore. As a matter of fact, this is why we have some intellectual property to work with in addition to what existed before. Intellectual property means money. Now, how I see it, I can be wrong, how I see it, intellectual property can have value. That can be assessed as time goes on. Value can feed this organization. This is not meant to be a money pit that money just goes into, but there is potential, from what I see, if it's managed properly, for the intellectual property to serve this organization, as well as the public interest. So I need the paperwork in place. I'll give you the number as we go along, just because it's in there, okay? I've got down $20K just for getting the paperwork in place. There's other legal issues, believe me. Okay, I have DNA that I've got to try and get tested, folks, and I think I'm going to have a problem. Okay, I just think I'm probably going to have a problem. I've had some problems before. If it comes to it, I'm going to need legal support in getting that testing pushed forward. There's many reasons legal assistance is now required as a part. It's no longer an option at this point. The statement is legal support is required for this foundation to exist. Whatever that cost is. I worked in a volunteer mode all the time for the last 20 years. Great things have been done. It doesn't work now. It's not going to cut it. Okay, on we go. Let's start to step through them. Next one. I mentioned to you already about the internet. I'm not going to repeat it, other than you are the beneficiaries of tremendous work by a very talented, committed individual over many, many years. That is no longer feasible. People have lives. Can you devote your whole life in a volunteer capacity? People need to make a living. You know what's going on with people being strapped, right? So you don't get that anymore. But you had it, and I'm glad you have it, but you don't have it anymore. You cannot be assured in any way that my website will exist from tomorrow onward. You cannot be assured of it in any way. I have tried to do things to try to protect it to some degree, but you cannot be assured it will be operational. I no longer can be the computer guy that I was. Just can't do it. I have to try and get this message out to you now. So what's the deal? The deal is the website and everything I'm speaking of needs professional capacity support, not just somebody hanging around. It's got to be professional capacity work. I need somebody to handle the website, okay? This is what they need to know. They need to be good at it. My standards for work are high, okay? This may be a fault. It may be why volunteers have a hard time working with me. I'm not sure, but my standards for performance are high. I want to compensate them, and I want people to be paid. I want them to work hard. I want them to do a darn good job, but I also want them to be paid, and paid fairly and well. So, pay somebody. Do the job, okay? That one, you see the numbers. The numbers are all there. I'm not going to focus on it now, but whatever that number was, $1,200 a month, whatever it is, all right? I consider the numbers reasonable. I try not to be too outlandish in either anyway, and generally I'm a very conservative person. All right, next one. I have some important biomolecules. Biomolecules are the building components of life. I talked about it yesterday. I'm sorry for the folks that are here today. I won't be able to go through it. They are the essence of the problem, is to understand the nature and function and how they work. These what are called carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids, or DNA. Proteins, again, huge emphasis yesterday. That's a big primary focus. But along the way, listen, we're at the point where DNA exists, folks. I have it, okay? It's a huge accomplishment, but I have it. Within that DNA lies the answer to many primary mysteries that have hung out in an ambiguous form for years on end. Totally unnecessary. It is completely unnecessary. We do not need to be in a state of mystery and ambiguity. I was supposed to speak about another topic, and I don't know how I'm going to squeeze it in here, but I'll try to, in that yesterday I kept mentioning, let's just for the sake of simplicity call it a bacterial form. You remember how I kept saying that yesterday? For the sake of simplicity, let's just call it a bacterial form. Okay, now I have to try and interject a statement today that we can't just get away with saying simply a bacterial form. The complexity of what's happening with this microorganism suggests that we're dealing with something considerably more complex. And we had a discussion last night about the domains of life, and I just can't get into repeating it all, but let's just say the name cross-domain bacteria, I have applied to this. I discussed my reasons for applying the terms, because the absence of assignment by the community that should be doing their job. But the nature of this organism appears to span the attributes of different types of biology. That's the way I'll try to paraphrase it for now. And it doesn't make sense in terms of normal biology. That's what I'm trying to say. At this point, it doesn't look like it makes sense. In other words, is it a bacteria? Is it a fungus? Well, what if I say it looks like it has properties of both? Okay. What do you do with that? DNA, I've got it. I need to get it tested. I need to get it done honestly, fairly. I need to have the work audited. I need to be satisfied that the results are honest and true. And again, my standards are high. I have been lied to in the past. I have been given false reports in the past. It's not going to be allowed. So this DNA needs to be tested, and it needs to be forced to be tested. So I will put the legal requirement in there at some point. And this has some of our answers. There's no excuse whatsoever for waiting. I did this work the first time 4 or 5 years ago. I've done it 3 times now. The work is better now. That's when I talked about intellectual property and such. The work is better in some pretty dramatic ways. But that's it. But just so you know, I didn't know what DNA looked like when I started. I had no idea what was involved to do it. But it can be done. It's actually not as difficult as you might think. It's more a matter of what you're working with. And so there's a number for every one of these. That one's about 20K, I think. And that's not enough, because you also need to do the whole thing with proteins. There's 3 proteins that I have. Every one of them needs to be analyzed. You got to understand structurally, molecular level, what it is, how it works, and how you're going to interfere with it will be one of the ultimate goals. The way that many diseases and health conditions are held at bay, possibly cured, but held at bay, is by preventing that normal sequence of biology that's taking place to cause you harm. If you can identify the weak points in that biology at the molecular level, then you can, and I'm not talking about the drug world in my side, you can go that route. That's there, it's a viable option, but it's not my style. But the point is, if you understand the pathway, you interfere with that pathway and you've disrupted things. I already know of numerous potential pathways to interrupt. Numerous. Okay, so tell me where it fits in the scheme of life. That's what DNA is. Tell me the structure of these proteins. Get the money for it is what it amounts to. I don't mean to be crass about it. I'm just saying I'm not after the money as my target. I'm after the substance of what I know needs to be done. Next one. How am I doing? I've only got 7 minutes. I've got to move, right? Something like that. Is that right, Carol? Okay, next one is. Yeah. Okay, time to move. Next one. I believe that a book should be written. Some of these things will be my personal desires to what I think is to the benefit to the public. I believe that a book should be written that tells the story of this organization over its history in a way that can be understood by the public. Call it the lay interpretation. My papers, in some ways, they're incredible to me. They're also torture for many people. For probably most people, they're torture because, it's a scientific method, right? That's usually not a nighttime read. So I think a book needs to be written. And I want that author paid. And I want that author to tell the story that needs to be told. The website does not tell the whole story. The website is my attempt to be impartial and objective to you to describe these circumstances over time. There are nuances to many of these papers that were written. The time that in Santa Fe, New Mexico, when I lived here, that I took, we had that filament material, environmental filament that I'm talking about, delivered into the hands of a forensic scientist that worked for the state. It took some maneuvering to get it into that place. Okay? You heard how the EPA refused to touch it, right? Well, the word is, and I don't work by hearsay, but let's say I trust the source because I know how it got to them. The word is that we are told that if this state forensic scientist touched that material, his career was over. Okay? There are stories behind these papers. And I want the story to be told at this time of my life. I have refrained from doing anything that tends to cause what I would call sensationalism or promote the hearsay approach, okay? But it's time to get the story out about what occurred here over the last 2 decades, okay? got to move. And I want people to be paid, whatever that one is. And by the way, on this one, I already have an author that I would respect. I have an author that I think can do the job. I want to pay him. And whatever that number is. The numbers are all in there, 35K, right? Okay. I obviously am not a person. You know, I think I could be good at a lot of things in my life. I think that's true. I've often fashioned many different careers in my life. But it does appear that I'm not the person you go to. Probably two things: make public appearances all the time, and number two, raise money. I'm not the person to be raising money. Money is a cool thing, has its place. Everybody has their path in life. That wasn't my path. I need one or more people. I need people that know how to raise money. It's not me. I want to pay somebody that knows how to raise money, okay? They're out there. They do it for nonprofits all the time. I want those people or person, I want to get it started, and I want to pay them. I need them to raise money, serious money that I'm not in. It's not my bailiwick, okay? And whatever that number is, it's a number to pay somebody to raise money. And I've tried to outline anything from a period of roughly, call it 3 years, maybe 5 years, to give us a window to get working. Okay, next one. Those notes that I showed you in those handwritten notebooks, I need them protected. I need them physically protected. Besides being digitally scanned, I need them physically protected. That means in a vault. That's what it means. They need to be sealed. I'm not claiming some undue importance. I'm just saying, again, I'm a realist. And things can disappear. They have disappeared if you look at history. There's some very important historic figures that have contributed to your benefit and welfare, and you don't have their information anymore. And why don't you have their information? Often because that information was confiscated or eliminated or removed from your access. I'll give you two names to start with. One will be Reich, right? And the other will be Tesla. There's no point, I'm not talking about comparison. I'm just saying you have been denied the fruits of their labors because that work was not in any place that you could get to it. I'm saying I want to create a place where I know that foundation owns the work. And it is physically protected, and the world knows that that information is in there. I'm all about getting information out. The whole idea of decentralization, you want to know one of the most effective strategies of allowing control or ownership, it's decentralization. You get as many people involved as you can. I want everybody to know that that information is there. And I want it physically protected. Costs money. On I go. Okay. All of the information that I'm speaking of, and whether it's in the notebooks, about 30 volumes, 350 research papers, I don't know, maybe a couple thousand pages of work, whatever it is, I want to turn that into something which is accessible both by print and digital means. And I would like things to be in a ready, convenient, accessible format. We used to have libraries, and we went to the library and we looked up something. I call it an online library. I don't know. I want you to be able to find things. I know they're in there. I want it to be convenient, accessible, and easy for you. And I want it in different formats. Maybe you want paper. A lot of people like paper. I like paper. I want that to be available to you on demand, easily. That costs money. I'm not even going to go over the amounts anymore. Okay, next one. I mentioned on the health network. I've told you about what it's about. The first primary need is to have what I would call professional moderators. I have 3 on my mind. I want 3, so I have some balance of opinion there. I want 3 people to professionally moderate that panel so it maintains itself as a civil discussion. And the internet community on the board is just ripe to be torn apart by internal strife and dissonance. I'm not going to allow it to happen under my guidelines here. And I need this panel professionally. It's a professional place for dialogue for those in the health professions of many different types. Many and all. The truth is, if you're a professional, that qualifies for me. I don't care what profession you're in, actually. I want you to be good at what you're doing. and I want you to have the intention of helping people. I need someone to help me moderate this system. I cannot do it. Costs money. Pay them. If I get to jump to this, well, I get to jump to this already. All right, that's good. If we've covered those. Now, if you remember, it looks like I'm going to be out of time real soon. So do I have 1 minute or two? 1 minute, okay. Before that was a core list. Beneath it was an extended list that shows you where it's really going. You're dealing with millions of dollars down the road at some point, folks, if you get it. But I'm asking specifically, can we get this core in place? All right, with these. The last one, I'll just say this is, if I have to continue in the same mode that I am, where I try to do all the work, the next thing is the next level of equipment, which is this instrument, and they're about $50K. I've done a lot of, that's nothing to what instrumentation costs. But it's called an NMR desktop machine. Its purpose is to provide specific molecular detail and structure. And that was it. I hoped I could read my closing statement, if possible. This is a statement that I wrote and read to Tucson 1 year ago to close of it. I think it still applies, and I'd like to read it to you on my way out until they drag me off the stage. It's about 3 paragraphs, and here we go. It'll be my goodbye for today until they put me in that chair. Closing statement. What I have spoken of today may be, without doubt, overwhelming in many respects. I claim that there are indeed serious injustices that are in place across this planet and to all life that dwells upon it. It has taken a fair amount of evidence to be able to make these disclosures to you. The motive for the research and dedication from the beginning is not only the pursuit of information, it is the pursuit of truth. Much time and effort has been spent by many to advocate solutions for problems that have not been defined properly or honestly. There are many distractions and detours, and I dare say that some of them are likely to be intentional. The good news is that the truth is completely immune to the whims, frailties, and vagaries of mankind. It is not under our control, and we are incapable of manipulating those final verdicts. Science, where I dwell part-time in my life, is only one path of pursuit towards truth. There are infinitely others. It is also true that truth is in complete accord with the natural laws and the divine laws that I spoke of earlier. It has always been, and it will always be. These laws will always ultimately rule the universe, and we all can, individually and collectively, make our decisions in life to follow them or to go astray. I ask that you seek this truth also, in your own way, as I have tried to do in my life. I then ask that you act upon that truth. That is all that you need to do. Ultimately, we will all be in accord with these laws, and the judgments on mankind will be made. There is no greater experience than can be imagined or realized, and I hope that you will use your gifts on that path. If you can join together on a level of harmony and in force, it will be an even grander experience to steer this earth on its track. I place no limits of any kind upon what you will accomplish with such power before you all. Thank you from Clifford.
Keep it.
Thank you.
Can you do mine too?
Sure.
Thank you very much, Clifford. Where did Elana go? Elana Freeland has been on the trail of fleshing out those who abuse the public and public funding for decades. Her forte is in clarifying and tying together multiple levels of issues and perpetrators, and then contextualizing how they all work together, not just for greed and power, but for more esoteric objectives. She's the author of Chemtrails HARP and the Full Spectrum Dominance of Planet Earth and Under an Ionized Sky, From Chemtrails to Space Fence Lockdown. You can find those books out on the table in the front lobby. And now is writing the third and last book in the series about synthetic biology and transhumanism. You may read more about Elana at her website, elanafreeland.com. Please welcome Elana Freeland.
So the way we're going to do this today, and again, I, like Clifford, offer my apologies to those who missed yesterday. But I am going to catch up a few things. And what I'd like to present is our situation. What we have, and I'm going to go backwards here for a while and get something else up, particularly for those who are here for the first time and were missed yesterday. Just going backward in my presentation yesterday to the slide that Clifford has at his website, and why it sort of gives a graphic of why we named this talk about how the connection between geoengineering and bioengineering is being done. Because many of us are led to believe that geoengineering is about weather. That's all it's about. It's a way of solar radiation management. It's putting sulfurs into the atmosphere. It's this, that, and the other, aluminum. But this is about far more than simply weather. And we went into that yesterday, both of us did. But today, let's address one of our primary problems. I mean, as I'm listening to Clifford talking, you know, we have inherited a so-called scientific revolution. I remember reading about it back in the 60s and 70s. We were undergoing a scientific revolution. But one of the problems with this revolution that we've undergone has manifold. There are manifold ways of looking at it that show it's something that it takes a while to understand our role. See, we've mainly been an audience for whatever the scientists choose to trot out for us to see. We all know that the National Security Act of 1947 gives scientists, technicians, intelligence, all the right to go into closed session when it's a national security issue. So we all know that we're not being forthrightly informed of much of the science. We also know that scientists are now heavily curtailed by a need to know compartmentalization regarding the national security issues of the American government. So right away, we're at a loss there. We're not going to be told what is really going on in science. So now here we are, the audience, many of us without science degrees, or maybe we have an undergraduate science degree or maybe a master's, but we're not in the in crowd. We're not in the national security posse of scientists who have been, who are controlled by non-disclosure agreements, compartmentalization, need-to-know basis. A lot of these guys don't even know what they're working on. But this is their career. This is their money. This is what they went to school for and went into debt for. So they are not going to be very receptive to citizens and citizen scientists like Clifford who have the temerity to want to inquire on their own and compare and contrast things that they're finding out that are not being told to them about your own health, for one thing. You go to a doctor now, and it's all sort of colluding, isn't it? It's all one big collusion going on, scratching backs and all that stuff that goes with so-called success at the cost of others. If you happen to define success that others are not paying for your success with their lives, with their health, with their children's health, well, one doesn't want to think about that. But what do we do who've been trained by the television to sit there and go into alpha wave and just be told what is and what isn't, following the director's lead, whoever is making a career out of their TV sitcoms, their dramas, their 60 Minutes, their National Geographic specials. And we are trained to be passive recipients of whatever comes down the pike. This does not prepare us for the clarion call that Clifford Carnicom is giving us, that nobody's coming. None of the experts are coming to tell us exactly what he has shown us the last 2 days. No one's coming. And there's no Martin Luther King coming either. It's up to citizens now. And this is scary, because all of us to some degree feel ill-equipped. I mean, I'll bet there's at least half of this audience, you haven't even gone through yet the deconditioning that I've already gone through 20, 30 years ago, fresh out of the 60s. And what we were attempting to find out about the deaths of the three kings, as I call them, the two Kennedys and Martin Luther King. As we were all struggling to wake up to the lies that we were being fed, we have 9/11, we all know it's lies. But how do you undo the conditioning which has shaped you into being a passive recipient who is extremely sensitive to bad news? And you don't want to hear bad news. It's all bad news. And then you're asked to be active with what you know and to raise your learning curve on what's going on. You know, our will as an American people has been weakened tremendously. First by television. I've never owned one. Why would I want to own a weapon of the government? Just the same reason I don't own a cell phone. You know, I make certain decisions. It's not that I don't go in a car because, I hate the petroleum industry. I do go in a car. I have to compromise. We all have to compromise. But what do you do when someone gives you a potential way that you can actually take hold of what has been denied you for over half a century by the intelligence community? I mean, that's why I do what I do. I don't get paid for what I do. Yeah, I make a little bit on books, but not very much. And I'm a fringe writer, right? So hardly anyone ever even knows that I've written any of these books. It's a crapshoot. I mean, that's what we've inherited from our National Security Act of 1947, as far as I'm concerned. If I were to blame something, that would be number one, because the CIA was created, that's the year I was born, by the way. The CIA was created that year. Aleister Crowley died that year. I mean, you start looking at how pivotal that Cold War year was, and then what followed. And now we have this people in America who want to do something, are concerned, are in pain, and yet there's no organization. We've been taught to do everything institutionally and count on our institutions and count on our experts to lead us and guide us, our authority figures to tell us what is true and not. I mean, it's overwhelming. I completely agree. But I am inured to not respond very favorably to people who say, Elana, it's just too much bad news for me. Well, you know, I'm sorry. I wish I had some jokes to make it go down easier, but I don't. And for me, I mean, I've got warrior written all over me. I mean, this is my life. And I am comporting myself to the best of my ability to make the stand for truth, as Clifford says. Truth. I was once asked by someone who I felt had ulterior motives toward me, well, what do you value more, truth or love? And I said, well, I value truth because without truth, there is no love. Right? So to have the opportunity to see what Clifford is asking us to do because of what is swimming through our blood and in our brains now, and I have seen it, I know it's there, whether you have an outbreak or not. It may come. In fact, there are some, Harry Rhodes being one, a British activist, who believe that one of the 5G's biggest missions is to be able to activate these nanobots that are swimming in our blood and brain. Now, if that can be done, and if Morgellons can be programmed and activated remotely, which I think is what they're heading for everything, to be able to do it remotely, then what will we do then? Because see, now we have a hiatus. We have a place where we can actually rest and make a plan and think things through. The degree to which our lives can be loaned to something like the Carnicom Institute, that we may have money. We have it, of course, earmarked for certain things. Maybe it needs to be re-earmarked. Maybe our health, instead of going to the doctor who doesn't know anything or is complicit for the most part, maybe we can make another decision to follow another trail that is a little precarious because we don't know how it'll end, but it would be our own decisions and using our own free will for what we must do in the era we have chosen to be born in. Because I maintain none of us are here by accident. We have all chosen to be here in this era of tremendous transition, not only from geoengineering to bioengineering, but from a living out of nature to living out of machines. And we have a great deal of sadness about that because we have been a certain species for many thousands of years, millions perhaps, that has depended upon nature for our sustenance. And now we have in charge of planet Earth people, I suppose they're still people, who are choosing to move us toward an automation of sorts, far from nature. So I think one of the things that has to come with your decision to be here now is it's asking you to make a stand, and that stand is entirely yours. It is not that you are now subject to authority figures. It is not that you are now waiting for a savior to come and fix things and set them aright, but that you have to make decisions about where you're going to put your resources. That would include your money, your energy, your attention, your faith, your hope, and all those things. So, I just don't apologize anymore for being the bearer of bad news. My maybe naive hope is that I will awaken you to the direness of what I know is coming. And what an exciting time. I mean, we're all going to die anyway, right? So it's not like it's something particularly terrible. It's simply what we have to accept. And in America, we've somehow been conditioned to think we somehow are so privileged in America that we don't have to go through that, because we have the resources that can make life a wonderful, exciting, fun endeavor. But we're all old enough in here, I'm looking around, we're all old enough to know that ain't the real story. We've all had pain and suffering. We've all had uncertainty. We've had many, many experiences and good experiences, and we're still going to have them, even with whoever's swimming in my bloodstream and my brain. It's still my life, and I'm still making the decisions. I mean, that's what's so wonderful, is it's really up to us. And that's the end of my sermon. And I would like to go into a few things that I did not go into yesterday that I want you to know, to add to not particularly the bad news, but the news of what's going on. Okay, so let me do that. Thank you for bearing with me with that. Yeah. All right. I had a great conversation on the phone about a month ago with Dr. Martin Paul. I had been given his phone number, and I was excited to call and talk with him. He is the doctor who right now is becoming quite well known for bringing out the problem that electromagnetic force is causing the voltage-gated activating the voltage-gated calcium channels, the VGCCS, in the plasma membrane around our cells. He is devoting a tremendous amount of time to this. He sees this as being the very key to our loss of health and our immune system problems. And I know he's right, and I wanted to bring up his name as someone that you might want to study on the internet. He is writing a book right now. He talked to me about the terahertz impact, which is terahertz antennas being coiled, the EMFs and the 5G in particular, as you have probably already heard, will use our sweat ducts all over our bodies, but particularly under our armpits and in our groin, as antennas, helical antennas. And because we have so much water in our system, the blessed water, it will activate the current in a particular way. So the problem with the calcium channels plays directly into this. And 5G is the kill switch, the beast system. It will use the Internet of Things all around us and our 60 hertz in our walls in order to activate the various parts of our bodies that are antennas. But really, and Dr. Paul knew nothing of this, and I did not broach the subject because he was in a hurry to catch a jet plane, with the heavy metals in us on a nano scale that are highly conductive, we're all antennas. Our whole body is an antenna now with these entities and metals swimming in our bloodstream. So what would that lead you to think might be a good thing for you to do as a health practice? Detox. Heavy metal detox. Start researching it. It could be a matter of going to your naturopath. It could be a matter of ordering something on eBay. I don't know. But what I'm doing, I'm going to share a few things I'm doing, because my health is so far pretty good. I'm taking Tony Pantalaresco's baths, and I'm doing it once a week. Tony Pantalaresco is on that list that I showed you a little bit ago. I'll put it up again. So some people want to copy it here. Oops, did I go too far? No, there it is. How do I make it bigger? The green? Okay, there we go. I did something without you. Wow, see, we can learn. All right, so Tony Pantalaresco is right here. I'm sorry for the color, I didn't pay attention to that. So Tony is here, he's augmentinforce.com, he's independence.podbeam.com, he's this YouTube channel here, and that's Tony. He's quite an amazing character. Huh? Oh, let's see. How do I do that? You want to do that? Everybody's grateful. I can't do both, though, at once, huh? Okay, so let's do the first half, and then we'll do the other half. How do I choose things? I'm sure there's someone fantastic and wonderful that I forgot, but I keep a list of what are unusual sites that go on a deeper level that I'm interested in, and that's what we have here. Such as up here, let's see. These are the Morgellons sites. Skizit Gesture. He's not doing that site anymore, but you can still find many of his videos. They're absolutely excellent. And then Morgellons Cover-Up. A lot of these are survivor sites. Morgellons Cover-Up is, and so is Finding Hope with Morgellons. Those are survivor sites. You learn a lot there. And their courage is very impressive. Then we have the weather sites. What is in our skies? That is a what's in our clouds kind of thing, what's going on above us. So there's all kinds of things going on here, and this is just Elana. I'm sure there are other sites that need to be added to this list that I only do once in a while. All right, so I talked about Martin Pall. I wanted to mention him because he's important to understand what's going on in your body. Anthony Patch is a friend of mine, and he's my go-to CERN man. And all I wanted to say about Anthony the last time I was on his show, we talked about digital biology. This has to do with geoengineering becoming bioengineering. Digital biology, computers moving molecular biology into bioengineering with computer-aided design, CAD, they're called CAD programs. Digitizing DNA, happening all the time now. Digital biology has created the bioengineering business model. And if you have any doubts about that this is a moneymaker, go to the NASDAQ stock figures in your New York Times and you'll see this is where all the money's going now, is into bioengineering. Because they all know something about the future that we're slow on understanding, that transhumanism is on the way, and we are being prepared for it with this technology on a nano scale that we're breathing in, that's being delivered by jets, rockets, drones, GMO foods, and vaccinations. And this is how it is. If we lived in the time of the Inquisition, we'd be talking about how to avoid the Inquisition. I mean, every era has its enemies. Every era has its challenges. It's the passivity we've been taught with that terrible television, for one, that is the problem for me. I myself, I don't know that I know what passive means. It's never been one of the things I've sought. So I wanted to tell you that, the idea of digital biology. All right. And then I want to talk a little bit about the California fires, the Paradise California fires. I was very involved in that in the sense that I'm friends with Jamie Lee, who did over 100 videos about the California fire. Paradise? Jamie Lee, plaintruth.info is the name of his site. He may have a different site now because YouTube has taken him down several times. All right, regarding the Paradise fires, the video that really got me was the video called Paradise Lost number 51. And that's where Jamie interviews a guy, a scientist, does not give his name for obviously good reasons, because he spills the beans on how the fires were done, because he was privy to that. And the thing that he brought up that was, well, he brought up several things that were extraordinary, but he brought up that LEDs and Li-Fi had been used to trigger the fires. And he explained how it was done. And I don't know that you know what LEDs, okay, we all know the term LEDs, right? Light emitting diodes, okay. And I wanted to just kind of go over this because now if you look at the lights that are now out on the freeway, lighting everything up, and LEDs are everywhere. And they are low voltage semiconductors providing solid state lighting, ubiquity, network connectivity, and access to power for the Internet of Things. Would you repeat that? Yes. LEDs are light-emitting diodes. They are low-voltage semiconductors providing solid-state lighting, ubiquity, network connectivity, and access to power for the Internet of Things. So just by that very definition, you and I know that LEDs are going to be used in the 5G network. No question about it. If you have LEDs in your home now, and you've been sold those by the electrical guy who knows everything about lighting, you probably want to get rid of them because they're pulsing you all the time. Unlike analog high voltage light fixtures, you know, the old light bulbs, LEDs and digital go together, which is why they pretty much constitute the internet-connected central nervous system of smart buildings. LEDs have sensors in them that 24/7 sense their environment, act on the information, then network it, send it on. In other words, if you see the LEDs, they see you, okay? LEDs are perfect for internet connectivity through Li-Fi technology. By increasing the flicker rate of LEDs, data can be transmitted to specially adapted laptops and electric devices via the visible spectrum instead of via the currently used radio and microwaves. LEDs are used to transmit visible light Whereas Li-Fi, which stands for light fidelity, is a visible light communication system that uses invisible UV, ultraviolet, and IR, infrared light, to transmit data at high speeds between wireless devices. Now, I don't know if you've seen the ads for the Li-Fi, but they make it sound like, oh, this is safer. This would be great in my home, as long as you don't have a wall in between where you need the Li-Fi, the light acting as a Wi-Fi to transmit your data to your computer, from your computer, whatever it is. But really, they are not particularly safe, but they are they will be used in the Internet of Things. And the Internet of Things is really, let's think of it as a big web that we're caught in. Be a good time to check the computers in your dishwasher. It'd be good to think about your relationship with technology that's state-of-the-art. Maybe you want something a little older that doesn't have all the computers. For example, I have a 2001 Honda CR-V. When I pull up to a light, there are no sensors that pick up my being there, because before 2005, they didn't have the sensors. At least, I think that's what it is. So I just decide to run the red light at the point that I have decided I need to, because it's not going to know I'm there, and that's just fine with me. Okay, so now I've told you enough about Li-Fi and LEDs to then share with you what the scientist said about the Paradise fires. He said that Li-Fi was used to trigger the nanotechnology on the ground. Now, I don't know if you noticed what I noticed in the videos of those fires, but I noticed, and I couldn't explain it, but I don't know that much about fires. I couldn't explain why the ground seemed to be moving and the fire on the ground was not a matter of eating up brush and moving because it was eating up brush and getting oxidized. No, it was moving in a strange pattern, as though it were being manipulated on a laptop. I mean, I couldn't figure out why it was. There was low wind. It wasn't the wind. And now I find out that from the scientist who was involved in this operation, that they use Li-Fi to move those nanoparticles that are on the ground and to make them go where they wanted, because as you know, some houses got burned, some didn't. And just a few feet from each other. And no trees got burned. So Li-Fi is very useful for that. He said that when we saw I don't know if you saw it, but anyway, there was a blue beam coming from the sky, which everyone thought was a laser. He said it was an LED in the blue spectrum, and that it was activating the Li-Fi installations that were on the ground and in various places in the Internet of Things, right? Maybe in people's homes that got burned. I don't know. So that's important. That these LEDs and Li-Fi are not what they seem. The other term to be familiar with is LiDAR. Now, I heard from Deborah Tavares that outside of Paradise, they have now got a LiDAR unit. And LiDAR is light detection and ranging. Think of it as it's like radar, LiDAR, but radar uses radio frequency, and sonar uses pulsed sound, but LiDAR uses pulsed laser light, okay? So By measuring the backscattered light to the target and back, distance can be determined as well as atmospheric density, which is why LiDAR is used for, wait for it, aerosol loading. So if you are making a fire, you would want some chemical trails over the area about 3 days in advance, maybe a week in advance. And then you could use the LiDAR to load the nanoparticles that have been delivered by jet to the area to be beamed and burned, and then you would be ready for the operation. Are you getting my picture here? These forms of light are part of the weapon system, and we need to understand that everything is dual use, right? That's a military term. That means used for citizens and used for military. And these, yes, am I saying that Paradise, California was a military operation? Well, I'm saying it was at least a military industrial intelligence operation. Yes, I am. And that we can analyze how it's done and understand that what the concern is, and this I write about this all the time, that the concern is to weaponize everything on the face of the earth, including you and me, and that is what is known as the doctrine of full spectrum dominance. So all of these things have a use, and we need to always look at the dual use, not just the consumer use, but what it could be, how it could be used militarily, okay? So I just wanted to bring that up very lightly. And then I want to finish with this. No, I'm not going to finish talking, but I'll finish this part of the talk. Jamie Lee sent me, I sent it out. Some of you may have received it. I don't know if you're on my mailing list. Jamie Lee sent me something on vaccinations. Now, this is a place where people really are waking up. Why? Because our children are at risk now. We're beginning to see that. It apparently isn't enough when we're at risk, but when our children are at risk, it's a good beginning. Now, I myself, for the vaccination thing, I was a Waldorf teacher, as many of you know. I was trained in Waldorf education. I started 4 Waldorf schools in the state of Washington. I spent 16 years of my life making sure that children would have a place to play where there weren't a bunch of computers and a bunch of plastic toys. And I'm very happy I did that, very happy. Waldorf does not recommend vaccinations. And when parents enter, it is explained to them why. It's not the usual materialistic way of explaining, but I thought I would share with you how I actually look at vaccinations because of my Waldorf training, because of my years in Waldorf, because of my thousands of hours spent in the classroom with children, what I think the problem is. And Jamie has a son who goes to Waldorf, so he sent me this. As mass inoculation without choice, this is Jamie, is to be made mandatory in California very, very soon, there are 3 new bills rushing to be passed through California Congress. And by July 2020, you will not be able to fly without being vaxxed. Okay, so then he names these 3 bills. I'm not going to rename them here. I actually don't have them. Then he says, what are these times really about? And why are they forcing vaccines on all without voice, without discussion, and very soon without a choice? Every parent has a right and needs to be represented with Rudolf Steiner's insight and warnings. Rudolf Steiner is the founder of the Waldorf system. It would be beneficial for concerned parents to meet with Robert Kennedy Jr., he is available for that, to talk on this most important subject. I've actually been asked by Robert Kennedy to write something about what is going on with the nanoparticles. He wants to understand that, and I will be writing that. He has been regularly traveling to Sacramento to stand up and be heard. So very few understand the true agenda behind mass vaxxing of our children. Yet Rudolf Steiner was very clear about this great time of awakening to the Ahrimanic agenda. Time is of the essence, and that's the end of what Jamie says to me. And then we have some quotes from an article from Rudolf Steiner, and I will read those. Now, Rudolf Steiner died in 1925. On that past occasion, the spirit was abolished. The soul will be abolished by means of a medicament yet to be discovered. So he was saying this about over 150 years ago, right? Or about 100 years ago, I guess. A healthy outlook will lead to the discovery, and he has healthy outlook in quotes, will lead to the discovery of a vaccine which will be injected into the human organism in earliest infancy, if possible, immediately after birth, to ensure that this human body never has the idea that a soul and a spirit exist. This indicates the sheer contradiction between two conceptions of life. The adherents of one will have to reflect how to develop concepts and ideas able to keep pace with reality, with the reality of spirit and soul. That's one side. The others, the followers of the modern materialists, will seek for the vaccine said to make the body healthy, that is to say, affects its constitution in such a way that the human being no longer speaks of such twaddle as soul and spirit, but speaks from a sound attitude of forces working in machines and in chemistry and producing planets and suns in the cosmic nebula. This attitude of mind will be induced by bodily procedures. Materialistic doctors will be entrusted with the task of driving souls out of human beings. And then Rudolf Steiner offered a prayer, and I will read that. This was I found it in a book by a Steiner person called Humanity's Last Stand, The Challenge of Artificial Intelligence. All right, Rudolf Steiner. I want, with cosmic spirit, to enthuse each human being that a flame they may become, and fiery will unfold the essence of their being. The other ones, they strive to take from cosmic waters what will extinguish flames and pour paralysis into all inner being. Oh, joy, when human being's flame is blazing, even when at rest. Oh, bitter pain, when the human thing is put in bonds when it wants to stir. So this is bad news, but isn't it better to know the enemy and to know the movements of the enemy? And if we are here to defend our humanity and the goodness of the greatness of humanity, oh yes, we can blame humans for all kinds of things, but a lot of people are into power and they get joy out of giving other people pain. I think of all the targeted individuals I'm in touch with, all the MK Ultra survivors I've been in touch with over the years. Yeah, there are many, many struggles here. It was not promised to us at birth that we would not have struggles. And if you have allowed convenience and comfort to weaken you, please take a moment and think about that. What we need is, we need warriors, we need strong people who are willing to stand in this, our time, for we are all on watch. This is our watch. This is my watch. This is your watch. And I think that we would do well to really consider what a life is worth. Is it just about being safe? Is it just about having enough money until I die that I should be thinking? what will I take through the gates of death with me? I will take what I did and what I didn't do. That's what I will take. And you have standing before you someone who acutely knows this. I am very fortunate. I died when I was 21, 22, in a wave at Makapu on Oahu because I was young and stupid, trying to body surf a wave at Makapu, and I got pulled into the undertow. So I've known since I was 22 that I will be going somewhere when I leave here. All I saw was the tunnel and the beautiful light and speeding 1,000 miles an hour going, home, I'm going home. I was so excited. And then suddenly somebody made a decision somewhere. Nope, not time. Backwards. And then I'm going backwards and I'm going, no, I want to go home. And then I ended up on the beach. God knows how I ended up on the beach. I was throwing up seawater. I'd ripped my suit and I had ripped the skin off the front of my body up to my pubic bone. And for a few days, I was pretty depressed that I'd come back. But then it suddenly dawned on me, wow, there is a home I'm going to. And I am not nearly ready to go because I have not done great deeds. Great deeds, I said to myself. And that's what we have here right before us, is great deeds, because we have been conspired against, my friends. Brutally conspired against. And I have studied the enemy for over 20 years. I know how they think. They think they are lords of the universe. They think that our job is to do their will. They feel that they're dragging a primitive humanity behind them and that they are the great souls. They are the Mahatmas who know the direction we should go. And so now we are in a democratic age, and they have prepared well to make it as undemocratic as possible by throwing a lack of confidence into us when we have more information now flowing than ever before, but we don't know what to do with it and we don't know how to contextualize it. This is the problem. This is a democratic era, and they have prepared so that we would not know that and we would not take hold of that and make something of it for this nation that attempted a grand experiment. So I say to you, in appeal, having listened to Clifford the last 2 days, I've been involved in this movement now for about 9 years, maybe 8, and it's not organized. It's very horizontal, I call it. It's mostly an internet movement. I'm on Facebook. I get emails. I respond to emails. I hardly ever meet one of the activists. And yet, I haven't known how to proceed regarding an organization. I haven't known how to organize this. And I feel I'm a recovering leader and that I don't want to be a leader again. I want to write and lead that way. So now Clifford comes up with the Carnicom Institute, and now I'm thinking, could this be a way to organize and begin to work for something for the future, for the children and the grandchildren who have not a clue of what's going on? Maybe this is it. I don't know another organization I would be interested in. But anyway, I wanted to make sure that you heard my plea along with Clifford's. And I really thank you for taking the time to listen to very ponderous things. For what is a life worth? It is worth doing well and doing great deeds. And that is my hope for you, as it is for myself. Thank you.
Yesterday, Clifford, you had displayed on the wall behind you a list of 100 or maybe 200 government agencies and corporations and Air Force, military, everyone, all these different places that clicked onto your website when you started posting photos of the crap in the air. And that was a fascinating list of characters. That list, do you have that on your website?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's there. I can access that.
Any of the papers that I showed are on the site.
Okay, good. I wanted to show that to lots of folks. That was very interesting. And I'm thinking of other questions.
That's right. Yes, it's called Visitors, I think, and you'll find it in the list.
Fantastic.
Clifford, thank you both for being here. I have really gotten a lot out of this. I was wondering if you have a way of identifying Morgellons compared to other random mysterious diseases.
I think my question would be comparing in what way? Do you mean biologically? Do you mean symptoms? What kind of thing do you mean in terms of comparing?
How do you identify possible Morgellons as compared to something random?
Well, yes, I think my focus would always be on trying to, and I'm not a doctor, right? We all have understood that, so I speak from a researcher point of view. As a researcher, when I encountered basically the existence of the filament material, that's what started things. To me, the focus has to be in the origin. In other words, biology for every organism, no matter what it is different. It's unique. And so that's where I start in terms of trying to identify the source and origin of something. And that biology will eventually manifest itself. If it's pathological, it's going to manifest itself in different forms in the body. So my focus has always been there. The fact that it shares symptoms with other diseases is certainly of great interest, and I think that's an entire field of research that has picked up steam over the last couple of decades, is the overlap and parallels between what are called emerging diseases and chronic diseases. So obviously there are connections to be made here, and that tells me that biochemistry is going to be shared in various ways. But I can't profess to know that level of detail at this time, and my focus is obviously, you could say, restricted out of necessity because I have my hands full trying to understand even what I see. There's so much that's going on, and I don't have the tools to get all of the information that I need. So to me, I guess in terms of trying to answer your question, there is a uniqueness that deserves the effort and consideration on a full-scale, more in-depth knowledge of that biology and biochemistry, and then the consequent manifestation of that. And then there's also the understanding that there is many shared symptoms, properties, and most likely resulting from shared biochemistry and biology and chemistry with many of the diseases that we now call emerging and chronic. I don't know if that helps you or answers your question, but that's my start to your answer.
I'm just wondering if he also meant, how does one discover whether or not they have Morgellons? I did that with your test to find out, basically because I just want to make this brief. I was having repeated, if I started a vigorous exercise, I would have shortness of breath. And I knew I was out of shape, but this was something different. So I did your wine test, and I discovered for myself that I have it. So anyway, maybe you want to...
Yeah, okay, and that does bring up a good point. And as a matter of fact, your symptom that you just cited ends up being on that list, on the upper part of the list, if we recall from yesterday. But I have used a term called markers in my work. And as I've gone along, I have asked that very question, what could be used as a test or indicator. I'm at the point now where I think I could easily identify and relate to a dozen what I would call markers of things that I would be looking for. I think there's numerous ways that the uniqueness of this organism and its manifestation can be identified in a very explicit fashion, repeatable fashion. Again, I'm not after vagueness here. I think there are very specific things. It started in many ways with the blood. The examination of the blood is a whole story in itself. But I have well over a dozen in my mind. I'll say every what they call bodily fluids, every single bodily fluid that you have is ripe for examination to begin with. And I could have a half a dozen instances easily. Organs, it's there. It's there. We just need to devote the resources.
Yesterday, Clifford, you mentioned that you've never been physically attacked, but you have been ridiculed and insulted, and people have attempted to humiliate you for what you have been studying. And I'm in the same boat, and I merely observe. I look out my window, or I go outside with binoculars, and with binoculars, any of us can look at a jet flying overhead, and there is nothing emitting from the engines. This stuff is being sprayed off the little back fins, the tails of the jet. There's nothing coming out of the engines. So when I tell people, why don't you go outside with some binoculars and just look up? And I am called names, and they attempt to humiliate me. So I'm astounded by these people who do not understand, who do not want to look. They want to read evidence of what is on the internet because they don't want to go outside and look up. I'm reading about chemtrails and this weather modification. I learned that Bernard Vonnegut was instrumental in developing the science. And he had a younger brother named Kurt Vonnegut, who was the famous author. And I've read every book by Kurt Vonnegut, and he described several times in his books that he is not amused that his brother is up in the sky playing God with the weather. And Bernard Vonnegut.
Excuse me, could you focus on a question?
Okay, I guess I don't have a question. I just want to say that I know the man. I know a man named Bernard who lives in Santa Fe, who was named after Bernard Vonnegut. And when I say, Bernard, look up, he tells me those are ice crystals.
Thanks for your commentary. I appreciate it.
Can you address a little something?
I have no question at this point to respond. The commentaries. Huh?
Explain why it's not.
Oh, I wouldn't want to go into that at this point. But I appreciate the commentary. But I'll try to restrict.
So this is no trivial operation. It looks like it's like the total re-engineering of chemistry and biology on the planet, and it seems planet-wide. It seems to have extensive control mechanisms that prevent sovereign states from, and countries from actually acting against it and preventing it. So do you have any ideas about who's behind this?
We actually brought up this topic yesterday. And this was actually on my list of, if I had extra time, some sort of side questions or observations. And this question of who, and I was thinking about this over the last couple months ago, because what happened is you have this reiteration of this really common argument, very sensible argument, and the argument goes, well, why would anybody do this? Because you're doing it to yourself, right? Why would anybody want to do something that would affect themselves, that would harm people? And that's always been one of those slightly elusive sort of questions and arguments to me, and it does come up. And I did some thinking about this, and I have a series of responses in the past that I have provided, and if we had time, I would provide those too. And these center on basically power structures and our sense of scale of what power structures are. But I tried to boil it down, my pursuit, I tried to boil down to a more direct topic. And what I came up with is, if you have any situation or problem before you, there's a classic approach, right, of the who, what, when, where, and why, right? This is a classic approach to attack a problem. And as I thought about the situation that we're in, I asked myself, where are we with respect to each of these? And I went through them, and I had a degree of success with actually each of them. I think we have a higher degree of success than many of us know. On all of them but one, I went through what, and when, and where, and why, and I think there's a great deal of information, I'm a part of that information, I would hope, to actually answer in part, at least to some degree. We have some handle to some degree on those four, okay? Now, you do not know the answer to your situation until you get all five. That's why those five emerged as primary questions, right? And guess which one we do not actually know?
Who?
Who, right? And so my counter argument to that proposal of why would anybody do such a thing if you harmed yourself, I would contend that we cannot answer that question adequately until we finally settle the who, okay? When you know the who, you now have something of the magic five that you never had before. Now, that question of who can lead us into a whole nother discussion, okay? And this is where I would bring in scale of consideration, first off. What is your scale and scope of consideration? And that's a whole interesting dialogue, and we actually started on it a little bit yesterday, and my main response is, as with many things, as Elana was saying the other day, everything's on my table. I do not set boundaries when I have no grounds to. So I would contend that for those that offer that argument, that we have a mutual requirement, both that person proposing as well as myself, we have a mutual requirement to answer the who. And then I think we know a little bit more about what's going on. I don't know if that answered you, but that's where I'm at, because that's actually a very reasonable question to be asking.
So I have like a lot of questions. I'm going to try and, if it's all right if I throw a couple questions that are sort of related together. I'm not sure if this was explicitly stated or not ever, and if it was, I'm sorry, it might be a silly question, but are the Morgellons fibers that come out of the skin, or any of the weird, the stuff that comes up out of the skin, and obviously has been looked at under a microscope, are those organisms comprised of the fibers that, Clifford, you have discovered? Or what is the relationship exactly, if you know it, between,
Okay.
My
take on it at this point would be that the environmental filament, what I call the environmental filament, that form, as I look at it, as soon as I saw that there was a whole inside dimension to that filament, the filament became less of an object of interest to me. I did study that over time, and it actually became relatively neutral. I end up with a protein that appears to be keratin to me, but basically a protective coating, just like on your fingernail type thing. Very hard to break into. But I saw the actual filament itself as primarily a delivery or an encasing device, okay?
Okay.
And then my focus has been on the inside, right?
Right.
Now, the interesting thing is that as you follow that growth morphology all the way through from the beginning, if you get to the point where you are working with the I'll use the term today now, cross-domain bacteria rather than bacterial, like hopefully we understand that transfer. You get to the point now where you start with this and work it forward to where you are culturing, they actually become indistinguishable in the final form. So they appear to be essentially identical from best I can tell in their chemistry. So
Okay.
what it says, if that's true, what it says is that the the encasing mechanism is not necessarily restricted to that function. When she was talking about dual use, different way. But I could have it as an encasing encasement at that point, but it could still be a part of the biological progression and growth of that organism, if that makes sense.
Right. So the delivery system could contain any number of things.
Pardon me?
The keratin filament that's the encasing is, from as best you can tell, could be carrying any number of pathogens
could
within
be.
it, or
It could be, but in my case, there's a very specific set of structures that evolve in there. Two primary forms, one being a filament network within the encasement,
Right.
okay? Much smaller dimension. In other words, within a single filament, not uncommon to see 20 across internally, okay? So an internal filament structure within the encasing filament, which is already submicron to begin with, and then the cross-domain bacterial form.
Right.
Within it. Those are the two main structures that I can see with the limitations of my equipment. I have to say, I'm limited by what I have, and I have every reason to believe that if you give me the means to, let's say, dig deeper, I think I will see further.
okay.
And I would say, I would add that you're talking about what people see coming out of the lesions. Many people have seen, as I recall, the colors being black, blue, and white, is it, or red? Red. And those appear to be part of the interior. And you remember there's self-replication going on. There's a whole network being formed inside due to the Morgellons, I call it programming. But those two have been seen. Yeah, and that's what I thought she was also referring to.
Okay. Yeah, I was kind of just wondering what the connections were, because I know, obviously there is more to be discovered. And if I could throw out one more, you wrote a paper called a frequency-induced disease. I'm wondering if you would expound on that a little bit.
Sure. When you're trying to learn about something, again, what's on your mind? What's on my mind is anything and everything that could affect the growth and behavior of such an organism. And electromagnetics comes into that picture. I wish I had more time. I have spent a couple of years that have been involved with various forms of that. But some of the work involved the application of electromagnetic fields to that growth. And in that process, there has been quite a few things seen. There's a fair amount that was not published also. There was an interruption from you'd call it internal, a little bit of internal turmoil in the evolution of the Institute at that time, and I had to put the work at bay. But I had some very interesting work that came up with electromagnetics. That's still, when I spoke of the notebooks, that's the kind of thing that would be in the notebooks. But along that path, there was one test that really stuck out as being really quite remarkable, and that's where a certain wavelength of light was used on that culture process. Now, I still don't know exactly. At that point, I didn't have the microscopy equipment nor some of the instrumentation I have, so we don't know exactly the degree of identity or parallelism between the forms that we're talking of here. But what happened was this culture subjected to a particular wavelength, be towards the blue side, had incredibly rapid growth. It was literally within 12, 20, what happened was I checked the culture overnight the next morning. It was incredibly rapid growth of a massive filament network that took place. Now that filament network, again, we have to be cautious and careful about what we say that is. It actually has, to me, because of its size of those filaments is not submicron. It actually has some similarity to what I think would be the slime mold categories, okay? But we have to be careful about what it was. What I do know is it created a remarkable growth of a filament network. It was an oral sample that was used for the culture, and it caused me to write a paper to advise caution for those people that are of a mind to think that somehow if I just apply electromagnetic energy to my body, that somehow it's helping me out.
Right,
And this was to make the point, you better be careful about what you're dealing with.
right.
And so-called rife frequencies or whatever that are passed on as being somehow sacred without any documentation or support for it. One of the main purposes of the paper was to advise caution when using electromagnetic energy towards something we have limited knowledge of. Mm-hmm. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, thanks for taking my question. I was listening to Elana talking about soul and spirit for a little while, and I've been following conspiracy and like what's going on by the very, very minority of really damaged people that are running the show here on Earth for a long time, you know? And, you know, it's like, I'm sorry, it's like there's, you know, everyone is lost in the details. You know, we're so distracted in everyday life by all the information that we get. But what we have here on Earth is you've got a really immature race.
Excuse me, could you focus your question?
It's what you've got. No, it's a statement. It's not a question. It's a statement.
We would like to hold to questions,
like-
please.
Hi, I have two specific kind of chemistry questions. One of them, yesterday, Clifford, when you were talking, you said quickly that there was an iron, I don't know the word you used, something that had to do with the protein that you were discovering and how it affected iron in a way that was odd. And I wondered if you could talk about that a little bit more.
Sure. This was one of the early strong observations in the nature of this organism, is that iron was absolutely crucial to its metabolism and existence. I mean, on a very strong level, the amount of iron involved in terms of its composition really just struck me as remarkable, even to begin with. So from that point on, I did begin to study iron, and in addition, another set of the early observations involved the existence of this organism in very high numbers within the blood. Now, there's a strong connection to be made immediately, or should be made, between iron and the blood and iron in the existence of a microbe within the blood. So now that you know you've got some kind of issue going on there, you know this at this point. So then the question becomes, you start studying iron a little bit, and you learn a very important fact with iron. And that is, and you start to learn about chemistry along the process, but iron has different states of existence. They call it oxidation states, but it has different states of existence. And actually chemistry is all about that. Chemistry is just, it's amazing, the variety. People say iron and they think it's one thing. No, there's different states of iron. And our bodies require a certain state of iron to exist for our blood to work. Okay, it has to be this form. It's not just iron. It has to be a certain type. It's called ferrous, Fe+2. And there's an exchange that takes place with oxygen. And this is how our body works. That whole business about respiration being the source of all energy, it's an exchange of energy in this iron is involved in that. And the problem is that from everything I see, this microbe, this organism, changes the state of the iron within the blood such that it cannot be used by the body effectively. It's a profound claim. And what it says is that immediately the entire energy equation in the body is disrupted all to hell. And sorry for my language. It's ripped apart when you start dealing with the respiration process, the transfer and exchange of energy in the human body, and you have messed up with the oxidation state of that iron. I hope that helps.
Very helpful. The second question is, I believe the particulates, both of you coming out of the sky, are they sulfur-based or phosphate-based? The chemtrail junk?
We probably both might have answers to that. In my case, what came out fairly early in the work, this is what claimed that came out fairly early, that still has established a basis to me to work from. And that is what struck my observation was that the types of materials, if we get away from the filament structure and we start dealing with the particulate matter, what I call ionizable metallic salts appear to be at the heart of the application, okay? Now that's a phrase in itself that has a lot of meaning. That started opening up electromagnetics entirely. But ionizable metallic salt is a loaded phrase, but it's saying you're dealing with something that, once again, the thrust of it is energy exchange, okay? When you're dealing with ions and electrons, you're dealing with energy, okay? And if you have something that is, that's a fundamental attribute, that the behavior of the stuff is ionizable. And the fascinating thing was that the chemistry class that was coming up here was able to be ionized by the sun. This is an amazing thing. You don't just take something and it becomes ionized, okay? You can give it energy or whatever, and it might, but to have something happen in the sun, sunlight become ionized is a remarkable property. And that's what I found, and that opened up the electromagnetic thing, and it carries on now into the whole smart dust. When you start bringing electromagnetics into the picture, we start to become wedded in our discussions.
Okay, well then that obliterates the final piece of the question, which is what do we do to our soils who are growing gardens to help our soils so the plants can thrive?
Right, then there are solutions. I think what I want to underscore is that regarding all these conditions, whether it's the soil or our own bodies, anything organic, there are so many people now who are awake to this imperative to find low-tech solutions that can work for us for health and in the soil. I live in Olympia, Washington, and we have a very active group there who are always bugging me and making sure that I understand exactly what they're doing, who are pursuing biochar. And they're taking all the fallen trees in the many forests in the Northwest, and they're burning them at slow temp in big 55-gallon barrels and making biochar that then they feed back into the soil. Others are doing other things. I mean, this is an all-hands-on-deck kind of low-tech pursuit for our bodies and the soil, absolutely.
Elana, I've asked you a question about if there's institutionalized evil, and you have gone to Steiner to provide some perspective, and I thought it might be useful, seeing that you feel there's a major spiritual component to this, what his perspective is on what time we're in, and if it can give some guidance.
Yeah, okay, well, I'll do my best there. To me, when I bring up the spiritual, this is primarily because I've been studying quantum mechanics. And quantum mechanics is sort of, there's a crossover point now that we're approaching with all the nanotech that I was talking about yesterday, how tiny it is, how the tininess itself is now projecting us closer and closer to a threshold in which nature does not apply, that there is a swarm consciousness in like the nanoparticles I was describing regarding the Paradise, California fires, how the swarms really are moving on the ground and choosing places to burn and other places not to burn. This idea of quantum is somehow on a threshold that Western science has not been on since before the 17th century. And what it means is, metaphysics and physics, how far apart are they really? And is metaphysics, does it only belong in the in religious discussion. I don't think so. I think it belongs in a, if you will, an existential discussion, particularly now that we have entered the microcosm in earnest with the nanotechnology that is being, I mean, it went through Congress like a fast wind in 2002. I talk about that in chapter 2 or 3 of Under an Ionized Sky. I mean, it just whizzed through Congress. There was no discussion, as usual in America. No discussion whatsoever as to safety. There was no experimentation as to what it would do to the human body or to any other living organisms. It was just cruise through. And now just about everything you buy in the store is probably loaded with nanos because they don't have to list it on the ingredients. So anything I see now, like I love those Odwalla juices, right? They're so thick. Now I'm very suspicious of the thickness because that could very well be filler with nanotech. So now we're back in that problem of our institutions, like corporations, like the Food and Drug Administration that's supposed to keep us safe from bad food, like EPA and CDC. Our institutions are tainted now, and they have been taken over by some collective Geist that everybody wants to keep their job, kind of thing, like their little tentacles inside this organism that has its own life, and its life is dependent on the bottom line, and nothing else counts. So I do not look at institutions. There's a very old term that was used in the Middle Ages that I really like. It's called egregor, E-G-R-E-G-O-R, egregor. What it is it's the collective embodiment of the thoughts and will of the individual components of that organization. And that is really what I feel we're dealing with, is a bunch of egregores that have their own will, their own life, similar to the swarm mentality of the nanotech. So quantum physics has really opened me. I recommend a book that's very friendly to us plebeians, right, us non-experts, called The Field. The Field. I can't remember the author's name. Lynn McTaggart, thank you. Yeah, it's a good primer to begin with.
Would you say the name again?
The Field.
No, the author.
Lynn McTaggart. I think it's M-C-T-A-G-G-E-R-T. A-R-T, thank you. Yeah.
Back to that elusive question of who, so many tests of soils around the country come up so often with heavy barium and aluminum content. And getting to who, the Monsanto Corporation is producing and studying to create crops and seeds that are resilient to aluminum. So could one of them who's be Monsanto?
There was sort of another part to that answer to that question about who that is brought up here. And see, the other part of that question, why would anybody do that if it would harm yourself? So besides going after the root of it with the who, another part of that answer is that it's happening all the time. If you're questioning why would anybody do that? Well, now you have to question the fact that there's evidence before you that it's happening all the time. And this is one example. Now, that doesn't mean that's the grand who, but that's a part of a who, right? There is this thing called the commons. See, I believe that we all have equal rights to the air. We all have equal rights to the water. I'm still of that old school. I believe in the commons. And so when you pollute that, which is happening across the board, when you ask, why would anyone do that? We must ask that question. Why is it happening, and why are we allowing it to happen? And who's allowing it to happen? So there is a part of this which can be identified. And it is all those violations that are taking place that violate the commons, right? The point I guess I'm making with this particular issue we're dealing with, it looks like the WHO is at a higher scale.
To my knowledge, the ingredients in jet fuel hasn't been disclosed totally, especially the JP8, but there has been, some scientists who've studied those individual ingredients, and could you comment on that and how just the pollution from the jet fuel and the influence on, the ionization of our skies is influenced by that?
Well, I'll try first. To my knowledge, and maybe I'm wrong, I've been concentrating so much on the shift to from geoengineering to bioengineering because of this book I'm writing, that I haven't been paying close attention to every step of what's going on regarding jet fuel. The JP8 is particular. But to my knowledge, the JP8 fuel is classified. And there is no rundown on exactly what is in that fuel, and that's the problem. We also can't get, I know when Michael Murphy was still working on his third film, his plan was to get a filter from a jet that he could then, he could have examined for what the contents coming out of the combustion chamber were, because as you know, in the combustion chamber, pyrolysis goes on, and pyrolysis changes the chemical structure of everything you put in. So there's a very different thing going on in there. And I would say the expert that I know who does that is Harold Kautzvella. Are you familiar with that name? Yeah. He is a German chemist, a radical young man, very brilliant, very rogue, you might say. Harald, H-A-R-A-L-D, Kautz, K-A-U-T-Z dash Vella, V-E-L-L-A. And I quote Harold extensively in this book about the fuel, because the process of pyrolysis made a lot of sense to me. So we have been unable to get any real data, and that goes for commercial jets too. I'm not just talking about military jet fuel, I'm talking about across the board. They're all using JP8 to my knowledge, and then they're doing biofuel, and I'd really like to know what that really is. Yeah. And Jim Lee is the one, by the way, climateviewer.com. Jim Lee is the one who follows that assiduously. Was that good enough?
Yeah, thanks.
I'm going to my lung specialist, who told me I was in perfect health, to do the wine test in front of him and say, look at this. And then I want to say I have insurance through Anthem, and you're part of that. And I want to really see this. So what can I use? What level of, what do you call it? I used a magnifying glass. I want I want to really see these Morgellons. So what level of, thank you. Say it again?
Magnification?
Yeah, magnification, but what is the technical thing that they use to really zoom in on these Morgellons and look at it? What do you use? What level?
I use a broad variety of methods and instruments to do my work.
Okay.
A broad variety. Optical methods, chemical methods, spectroscopy has come very, very large into my picture at really multiple methods, infrared, visible, near infrared, any way that I can go after something spectroscopically. In a spectroscopic fashion, I shall. Electrochemistry, qualitative chemistry. I use a battery of methods. And there is no single method that I would say is going to give me all the answers I need. And believe me, I certainly have a wish list. My list is pretty modest as far as a laboratory goes, okay? But I have some things, and I need every bit of it. And I use every bit of it to answer questions. Your question is a little bit loaded to me, and I guess I would also express a little caution I would have caution presenting myself to the medical community, claiming that I have specific knowledge that is not, let's say, formally authorized or accepted within their conversation base, and that I would be cautious of having certain diagnoses attached to me because of those inadequacies that might affect my future welfare in a very significant fashion. That would be my caution under the circumstances. I guess I'll just hold there for right now. From then on, I would say if somebody wishes to engage themselves and they wish to examine the evidence, then I get to produce my 350 papers and say, let's go to work. It's a delicate area to be involved in when you are presenting yourself to the medical community.
I have a question in regards to who might be behind this. If I can relate a story someone told me kind of spontaneously. I live in Silicon Valley, and I was invited to a friend's birthday party, and her husband has a company in Silicon Valley. But for some reason, when I was at the party, I asked her husband, I said, Michael, have you ever heard of chemtrails? He says, oh, that sounds like a conspiracy theory. And then he says, but you know, that reminds me of something that happened when he was traveling internationally for his business. He said, a few years ago, he said he was in Argentina working for someone, and he said he got invited to a party, and the hosts were quite wealthy, quite upper class, and quite connected to the higher government. And he said, so he goes to this party, and he said there was a lot of drinking, and at one point, later in the evening, one of the wealthy hostesses starts talking about a secret project put together by a large international group, and the project had something to do with, I think he said, covering up the sun or doing something at the sun. And at that point, I'd been reading a lot about chemtrails, but I hadn't heard of the sun simulator yet. And I told him, I said, you know, that's kind of the stuff that I'd been reading about, where people claim they see two suns, which I thought was ridiculous. But anyways, I thought that was interesting that he would tell me that, for what it's worth.
Good.
Pardon me, I'm a little shy, so this is weird, but,
We'll get along just fine.
okay. So my question is more about the scope of the WHO, and would you even elaborate, if at all, on the idea of terraforming?
And I'm sorry, I'm not here, I can't hear well enough.
So the idea of terraforming the Earth.
Oh, terraforming the
for-
Earth.
yeah.
And so the question is?
The question is regarding to who?
Okay, and the question is?
It's just the idea that, just if you have any information, or the idea that all of these things that are happening are definitely pointing to the fact that it's harder either for us to either be bioengineered into something else, or that the idea that we're no longer able to live on this planet in this biological form. So if the soil is being, so it can't grow, if the air is getting to the point where we can't breathe it, I'm just talking about the scope, is the possibility of the WHO being, up further than the government, up further than the banks or the high families.
Is this a disguised alien question?
Well, I just don't want it to be disguised in a certain kind of way, but it's just like,
Well, are you
is
beating around the
terraforming on the table?
Okay, yeah, the word terraforming.
Okay. Is terraforming on the table? Is that absolutely yes? Like I said, most everything's on my table. And whether or not this earth is being transformed in a manner that would eventually make it inhospitable to us as a species, I would say that's absolutely on my table. There's a lot of things that are on my table. I will say this also, if I can. The evidence at this time presents itself to me that this particular microorganism has the capacity to survive under what we would regard as extremely adverse and hostile conditions. I'll also make another point that I would have snuck in another way. I also see a level of intelligence embedded within this organism. Intelligence can be defined in many or approached in many different ways, but one manner includes adaptability for survival. I'll pass those comments.
Yeah, and I would just want to add one thing. If I were to look, I don't mean to disparage the alien idea, but it takes me a long time before I'm willing to import something from off-planet, because there's so much going on here that we have only begun to scratch the surface of, such as what a human being really is, and how valuable the human being might be to other species whose bodies cannot be seen in the tiny electromagnetic spectrum that we can access with our five senses. And I also know that if you pay attention to some of the whistleblowers who've come forward, I'm thinking particularly here of Bernard, Ronald Bernard, the banker, when he found his way out of the banking dream of wealth, as long as he kept his conscience on ice. The human being who abandons their humanity, and there we would have to have the discussion of what a human being really is. It's quite a bit more than a slab of meat, or a higher ape, quite a bit more. If a human being abandons their sense of being a human being and of fidelity to the humanity of other human beings, then the principle nature abhors a vacuum takes over. And a vacuum is formed in this so-called human being. And there will be many, many things that could rush to fill it. And then we have someone who looks, they have arms, they have legs, they have a face, but they might be doing things that really are anti-human, much like Satanists are doing today. And Satanism is growing at a tremendous pace. So we've lost our way regarding the human being that the 18th century people used to talk a lot about and write about. We've lost our way. They are heading us toward transhumanism, where we will be cyborgs, we will be brain-machine interfaces, but they must get us to despise our own humanity first, and they must undermine our immune system. And that's what they've been working on now in my lifetime, my entire lifetime, I would say.
Have either of you read of or have any comments on Dr. Gabriel Cousins' protocol for Morgellons?
My answer is no. I need the name repeated, but I believe my answer is no.
Dr. Gabriel Cousins, he heads the Tree of Life in Patagonia, Arizona. He's real famous for his cleanses and his belief in Morgellons.
Okay. My answer is no at this time, and I can only say that invitation at the health network I'm talking about is open, and I hope that all folks that we know of, that we regard as being serious and credible and concerned about the human condition, would organize themselves and present themselves in a way to help us. So invitation is open from my side, and I hope to meet anyone and everyone at some point.
Hi again. I'm wondering if either of you have ever heard of Neri Oxman. She did a TED Talk. I think she's done at least one TED Talk that I've seen. Are you guys familiar? And if not, I'll just throw out a couple things that might be of interest.
Can
She
you
did,
just focus on a question, because we don't have much time left?
yeah, there will be a question with this. It'll be really, yeah. She did a TED Talks called Design at the Intersection of Technology and Biology, wherein she talked about creating life-sustaining clothing, which was created with the combined bacterias of cyanobacteria and E. coli, one of which converts light into sugar, and the other one, the E. coli, converts that sugar into biofilm. So I was just wondering if you think that might be related to, any of the pathogens that are being discussed.
Well, the biofilm.
The only way that I can take the question right now, because I actually couldn't hear all of it, I could hear parts of it, but I do pick up keywords. Two keywords that certainly have my attention will be that of the cyanobacteria and biofilm. Both of these terms are very relevant under my consideration of the work. The biofilm is not even a question in terms of its relevance. The cyanobacteria is a rather fascinating topic when I get involved with the changes in morphology of this organism in its growth patterns, and also the role of cyanobacteria in ancient life on this planet, and also the difficulty of assigning the classification, the type of life that existed with cyanobacteria. In fact, they were called bacteria, but they're not actually bacteria to my knowledge. They have problems in the identification scheme of cyanobacteria historically, and it ties in to me with the switchover in interpretation of life based on genetics that we talked about. I don't think everybody was there, but the domains of life that are now used to classify biology have altered our classification systems. Cyanobacteria are one of those ambiguous cases that evolved.
And I'd be interested in you writing her name down and giving me a piece of paper, okay? Thanks.
We're going to take 2 more questions.
Elana, I have been hearing, I'm not sure where, but it's on my horizon, of useful uses for scalar technology and waves. Do you have you come across any of that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, as far as useful, yes, I have heard, in fact, I know of someone who does some sort of scalar wave healing over the internet. I've heard of that. I'm not sure I've experienced it. A friend signed me up for 10 days. I got free scalar something, but I'm not sure I got it. I might have. Life might have been better. I don't know. But I don't want to make fun of it because scalar is what Tesla used. He used consistently scalar waves. And scalar waves, another word for scalar waves is gravity waves. And we have seen gravity waves in the atmosphere at varying times. I am no expert on scalar tech, but I know that the weapon system called scalar interferometry is used consistently to produce hurricanes, tornadoes, storm systems, and that entails having at least 2 beams from ionospheric heaters crossing over the target area. And scalar is very fascinating to me, and I read a lot of Tom Bearden. And I recommend that you start dipping your toes in it because it is the name of the big weapons systems today that are manipulating weather and possibly even creating drought systems like over California or Iran. But I don't know enough about it to sound really intelligent about it yet.
My question is, well, I have a couple. One is when you were talking about the iron, and there are 2 basic fundamental forms of iron. I'm a naturopathic practitioner. So the elemental iron, I was wondering if you were talking about the elemental iron For instance, an iron pot versus iron from raisins and, any kind of organic format, not organically grown, but the organic format of iron. When you were talking about iron, Clifford, which of those two were you speaking of? That's one question.
I'm speaking of ionic iron.
Ionic iron?
Okay.
Okay, and then...
Specifically, ferrous and ferric iron. That's what my work is focused on.
Okay, and then one of the other questions that I had when you were talking about protein and, which kind of protein were you talking about that was in the blood when being affected by the protozoa, or that affected the protozoa?
Hemoglobin.
Pardon me?
Hemoglobin.
Hemoglobin?
Would be,
Okay.
hemoglobin is the protein that's going to be, have the iron within it as a major constituent. It's
For the
going
protein.
to depend upon the iron being in a certain state, and if that state is disturbed, you're going to have problems with the electron and oxygen exchange.
She wants to know what protein did you add to the pyramid?
Is that true?
That's correct.
Okay, there are 3 proteins that I have isolated. One of them is soluble, 2 of them are insoluble. My discussion related only to the soluble form of the protein, and that protein, to my knowledge, exists only in my sphere of work in terms of an understanding of how to isolate and derive it and to study it. It's not something we will find in the books at this point.
Okay.
But it does exist, and it has been characterized rather explicitly.
Going blood cell analysis, or just through...
This protozoa, this would be a standard protozoan culture. That's what was used there. The old, what do they call it? The old hay infusion? Right. The old hay infusion is a great source to create a culture. Cultures were created. There's nothing about that culture coming from the blood. That was a standalone culture, protozoa from a hay infusion, a standard source material. Allow that culture to grow, subject it to a specific protein to observe the effects.
And how about the Morgellons? Can that be seen through the live blood cell analysis?
My answer to that would be yes, with adequate magnification as well as resolution. They got to go together. Magnification by itself can be pretty cheap. You work them together. If the magnification and resolution are sufficient, this particular microbe can be identified quite commonly within the blood, and live blood cell analysis would be no different to me. If it's in the blood, it's in the blood. I have worked with live blood some, but my work is more with fixed slides. It's adequate for me to work with static slides. But there's no reason whatsoever that if I had sufficient equipment that I wouldn't anticipate its existence, because it's there in many cases, sometimes disturbingly so.
Elana and Clifford, as we wrap up here this afternoon, what would you leave us with in a 1 or 2 minute parting shot?
I could get out of trouble as quick as I could, because I'm not a summary type of person too well. But it has been a very engaging experience for me. I regard the audience here as being thoughtful. I'm not after making too many public presentations, but I appreciate what I would call the maturation that has taken place within the thought process and awareness of this audience versus my historical exposure and evolution. I appreciate that, even though the audience may be small in numbers. I've come to accept that long ago. So I want to thank you for that, the fact that you're willing to actually engage and think and not make a mockery of that which affects our existence and future and welfare. And I think that's the main message that I would want to pass on, is my appreciation to you.
Yes, and I'd agree. The thoughtfulness, I can feel it as well, and I appreciate that you have heard Clifford, because it's very hard to get him to do public talks, and I'm really so honored that I was able to be with him. We've been friends many years, and I hold him responsible for getting me into this. A long time ago, when we were looking at my red wine test and my blood under the microscope, and I was watching a creature suck the iron out of my red blood cells, and it awakened my undergrad biology major, which is great. I've never done anything with my biology major, and now I'm back on it. So I invite you to join us in the pursuit of the truth, yes, but also for the future generations, that we have made our attempt to educate the public so they can make their decisions as they go.
Elana and Clifford, we thank you so very much. We wish you well. And thank you all for joining us.